3 days, 3 ships, 3 Indian sailors dead. And the country responsible is not China, not Pakistan, not Iran, it is the United States. In just a matter of days, 3 vessels carrying Indian crew members have been caught up in US military action off the coast of Oman amid Washington's blockade and enforcement operations linked to Iran. The latest strike killed 3 Indian seafarers and left India's maritime community in shock. Now let's be clear. The United States says that these vessels were violating its restrictions and ignored repeated warnings. But for many Indians, the optics are impossible to ignore. For years, Washington has described India as its most important strategic partner of the 21st century. Yet today, Indian sailors are dying in incidents involving US military action. And this comes after a year of growing tensions between New Delhi and Washington. Trump's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, was in India barely weeks ago, trying hard to reset trade ties with India. But behind those smiles and handshakes lies a difficult question. Has the India-US relationship entered its coldest phase in decades? Let's start with what happened this week about the 3 Indian families who will never see their loved ones again. In just 3 days, 3 commercial vessels carrying Indian crew members came under attack in waters near Oman and the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz. The first incident involved the tanker MT Marivex. The vessel was carrying 24 Indians. A fire broke out on board. Thankfully, all 24 crew members were rescued by Omani authorities. Just a day later came an even more devastating attack. The Palau-flagged tanker MT Setibello was hit while operating off the Omani coast. On board were 24 Indian nationals. 21 crew members were rescued, but 3 Indian sailors went missing. They have now been found dead. Then came a third incident. Another commercial vessel, MT Jalbir, came under attack near Shinas port in Oman. Indian sailors were reportedly on board. 3 attacks, 3 days. Indian sailors caught in the middle. For New Delhi, this was no longer just another headline from a distant conflict. India's Ministry of External Affairs summoned America's top diplomat in New Delhi and issued a formal protest. The message was clear. Commercial shipping routes cannot become battlefields. Civilian sailors cannot become collateral damage. Washington argues that these were enforcement actions linked to the Iran war. But many in India have started asking the hard questions. Could the US forces have fired warning shots instead of attacking the said ships? After all, it was not a military vessel but a civilian vessel. Also, US forces knew that both the vessels had crew from India. Yet, they chose to attack the vessels anyway. For years, America has described India as its most important strategic partner of the 21st century. Yet this week, Indian sailors died in military actions carried out by America's armed forces. And these attacks did not happen in isolation. They happened against the backdrop of a year in which India and the United States have steadily drifted apart. And that story begins with Donald Trump's return to the White House. The first major friction point was trade. Trump returned to office promising tariffs against almost everyone. So initially, India wasn't singled out, but that changed as Washington became increasingly frustrated with India's continued purchase of Russian oil. Pressure rose, administration issued punitive tariffs as New Delhi refused to fall in line on Russia. Incidentally, many European countries and even China continued to buy Russian energy. But Trump attacked and went on to penalize India most heavily. Suddenly, 2 countries that constantly spoke about strategic convergence found themselves arguing over oil tankers and tariffs. The next fault line involved Indians in the United States. The Trump administration's decision to dramatically increase visa-related costs and tighten immigration rules sent shockwaves through the Indian diaspora. India remains the single largest beneficiary of the H-1B system. Indian professionals dominate America's technology workforce. Indian students form one of the largest foreign student communities in the United States. Any visa restriction, therefore, disproportionately impacts Indians. Then came something even more sensitive: Pakistan. For years, one of the strongest arguments in favor of closer India-US ties was that Washington had finally understood India's concerns regarding Pakistan-sponsored terror. But recent developments have raised uncomfortable questions in New Delhi. President Trump repeatedly claimed that he personally helped stop the India-Pakistan conflict following Operation Sindoor. India publicly rejected those claims. The Ministry of External Affairs pushed back, yet Trump's claims kept coming. Then came invitations to Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir, not once but repeatedly. At the same time, senior American officials began describing Pakistan as a partner in regional stability and counter-terrorism. From Washington's perspective, Pakistan is once again becoming useful. West Asia, Afghanistan, counter-terror, regional diplomacy. From India's perspective, this feels like a familiar movie, one it has seen before and never enjoyed. The deeper issue is strategic. India and the US may share concerns about China, but they do not always share the same methods. Washington wants alignment, India wants autonomy. Washington sees Russia through the lens of Ukraine, India sees Russia through the lens of energy, defense, and national interest. This difference has become increasingly visible. The Biden years often managed these disagreements quietly. Trump's style is different. Everything becomes public, everything becomes negotiable, everything becomes transactional, which means India can no longer assume that strategic goodwill alone will protect its interests. And that brings us back to those ships. The United States insists its actions were operational decisions linked to enforcement in the Gulf. But diplomacy is not only about facts, it is also about perception. And the perception today within India is uncomfortable. Indian sailors are dead. Indian crew members have repeatedly found themselves caught in American military action. And all of this is happening while Washington continues talking about a special strategic partnership with India. The contrast is stark. Words and actions increasingly appear disconnected. That is precisely why these incidents have resonated so strongly in India. The era of easy headlines about best friends may be over. The era of cold-eyed bargaining may have begun. The question is whether Washington and New Delhi can keep those interests aligned despite growing disagreements. This is Times Axis, where global stories meet India's perspective. Click on the bell icon to subscribe because the next big global shift will have India at its center.